All right, hi guys. Want to go over some slab construction techniques. Gonna go over rolling out your slab again at home using the materials I sent home. If you do not have two wooden slats for rolling a slab and a rolling pin, let me know. Send me an email or a message or whatever. I'll make sure to get one home to you, okay? So first things first, we got to roll a slab. I know I showed you guys how to do this before, but just in case you needed a reminder, I should also have sent home this canvas, like just a small piece of canvas for you to work on, because when you're rolling a slab or throwing a slab, if you're throwing it on a smooth surface, that clay will stick. So make sure you lay down your canvas. And if you find it really annoying how the canvas shifts around, which it can be, feel free to like tape it down to that board I sent home with you, or tape it to your table if you find that to be easier. Okay. So first thing I do is I cut off a big chunk of my clay, and I'm gonna throw it. Just so that if I start out trying to roll it when it's this thick, it's going to take a long time and a lot of elbow grease to get that flat. Just to speed up the process a little bit, I'm going to throw it. What this is going to do is it's going to kind of stretch it out as I throw it, and it'll get flatter much quicker. I don't throw it flat. I try to throw it so that it's at an angle and kind of pulling toward me. So I'm going to show you guys. And that just helps stretch it out quicker. And I'm going to turn it in a different direction as well, so I get more of a square than a rectangle. It really depends on what kind of slab you need. If you're looking for a long, skinny one, you could just throw it in one direction the entire time, and it'll keep stretching in that direction. All right, so you can see there's still kind of a thick spot on one side, but you can see how much it has stretched out since I started. It's gotten a lot flatter, a lot larger, and this will be a lot easier for me to roll out with my rolling pin and my slats. The slats that I gave you might vary and might be different than this one, but they should be generally, half an inch or less. That's how thick your slab will be once rolled out. So I'm just going to put these on either side of my piece of clay here. And I have to make sure that the slats are directly beneath my rolling pin. My rolling pin is going to actually ride on top of these slats. And that's what's going to make my clay slab the same thickness as my slats. So I want to make sure that I'm not going off the edge. If it was like this, I'd be rolling more of a wedge than a slab. So keep that in mind. Make sure your rolling pin is staying on top of those slats. So I'm just working it, rolling from the middle to the front, kind of coming from the middle to the back. If it helps, sometimes you can lift it up, turn it over. If you find you have one big lump kind of in the middle, flipping it over sometimes helps. And two, if your slab starts to get really wide to the point where your rolling pin is no longer sitting on your slats, feel free to trim off just an edge. All right, so you can see there's a little bit of a hump here, so I'm going to smooth that out. All right, so I think that feels pretty good. Just gonna smooth out that last little lump there. All right, so you can see how big this slab has become. It's long and it's thin, which is great if you're looking to make something large and thin. So now you can see this is a soft slab. This is something that I could form into something that has kind of organic form. If I'm looking to make form something that's cylindrical, I could roll this slab around it. One example I was thinking about trying myself was making a sculpture that kind of models this leaf. I found it dried up, fell off the plants in the classroom, and thought this was a really beautiful kind of organic shape that could possibly be kind of achieved using soft slab. That's something I'm going to have to kind of work out in my head, though. But yeah, there's so many possibilities with soft slabs. You know, it's the benefit of a soft slab is that you can really work with rounded shapes, soft edges. Even if you're creating something that has a flat front and a flat back, but something that's kind of curved, you can use that soft slab as that outer edge. All right, so there's my soft slab. This is how all slabs start out. The key to slab construction projects is knowing how you want to build your piece. Is it going to have rounded edges? Is it going to be more geometric? Do you want sharp corners? And that all determines how you use your slabs. So I'll show you an example of a slab that I rolled out yesterday, and I wrapped in plastic. So you can see I've got it sitting on my wear board. It's wrapped in plastic. It's set out overnight. So it has become leather hard. So if I pick up this piece of slab, you can see it is pretty stiff. I can hold it. It still will droop if I hold it like this long enough. I can kind of bend it without it cracking, so it's not bone dry yet. But it works much more like a piece of cardboard or wood. It makes for really easy construction if you're making like a box or something with hard edges. Compared to our soft slab, which would be incredibly hard to make sharp edges or build anything that stands up on its own at this stage. So soft slab is good if you are using something underneath it to kind of support it. I'll show you guys an example later of how to make a coffee mug or a cylinder in case that's the direction you want to go. But the soft slab can be used to like drape over things. And depending on what your project is, I can talk to you about how you might construct that. If you are using a drape mold, meaning you found like a plate or some sort of sculpture that you want to drape a soft slab on top of, depending on the surface of the object you're draping over, you might need to cover that with something to help the soft slab release from the object. I've used cornstarch and had really good luck with it. So if you are planning on doing something like that, let me know and I can help you figure out the process, okay? So I'm going to show you guys real quick. A hard slab project I've been working on. So I can show you guys how to join those corners, those edges, how you might measure out your pieces. So I am working on building something to hold pens and pencils at my desk at work because it's kind of chaotic and I need something to help me keep organized. So before I even started, I made sketches, and planning is really important with the slab construction projects. So you know how much slab you're going to need, how you might construct it, where you might need a little extra support if you're using soft slab, all kinds of things. So make sure you write your ideas down, sketch them out. This is what I want it to look like in the end. Down here you can see how I kind of blew that image, that 3D drawing apart, so I can see how many of these L shapes I need, how many of the squares I need, and then I can bring them all together once I roll out my slab. I did end up making a template for this. So these are those L shapes that you see in this sketch here. Down here I needed a minimum of 4 of these L shapes. And then I needed 6 of the square shapes. So I wanted my sculpture to be about 3 inches high. These squares were going to be 3 by 3s. So it kind of gave me, I knew ahead of time how tall I wanted this piece to be. So it would fit my pencils, hold them up. I won't have to like dig in to grab my pencils out. So thinking about how you want to design it, what works, what's not going to work, thinking of all those little things ahead of time is really helpful. So I need to cut 1 more of these L-shape pieces. So I'll show you guys how to do that with hard slab, and then I'll show you how I would be joining that. So I'm going to cut this into my leather hard slab. I'm not going to cut it into a freshly rolled slab because I'm going to be working into this sculpture that's already leather hard. So if I cut this template piece out of a soft slab, that soft slab is actually going to shrink as it becomes leather hard. So to try to keep my measurements relatively consistent, I am going to wait for my slab to become leather hard, and then I'm going to trace my template and cut it out. All right, so I've got my needle tool. You can use a knife, a butter knife, whatever you have at home. First thing I'm going to do is just trace it. I'm not even going to bother cutting it at this point. Trying to keep my template in one spot so it's not shifting all around, which it just did on me. That's okay. You can always fix those things later. All right, so there's my traced L shape into my leather hard piece of clay, okay? I'm going to take this ruler, just a straight edge would be fine, whatever you have at home. I'm going to cut away the excess here. All right, so I have now my leather hard L shape that should kind of match, hopefully, the bottom of my piece I'm making here. Which it looks like it's working pretty good. Get this out of the way. All right, so per my drawing, I've got, you can see the tall one in the back, one in front, and one on the side. So it kind of makes this corner piece. So I've got this L shape, and this L shape. The 4th L shape is actually for the bottom of my piece. So that's where I am going to score and slip to attach it. One thing to keep in mind too, if you're making something that is precisely measured, keep in mind the thickness of your slabs as you are working. Since I am putting this directly on top of that L shape on the bottom, that is actually going to raise the height of this 3 by 3 square, which I wanted to keep it all very consistent measurements all the way around. So one way around that is to bevel my edges. Now this is optional. It depends on how precise you want to be with measurements. I could simply take this, trace out where the sculpture itself, or the structure, sits on top of the bottom base piece. I'm just going to trace all sides so I know where to score and slip. All right. So you can see I traced where the structure that I've already built sits on top of the base there. I could simply score that and then score the bottom of this where it connects, put a bunch of slip in there, connect it, and that would be fine. Where I'm concerned is my 3x3 going to still fit? Is it going to make sense? And actually it looks like it would be okay. I could either, so like I was saying, I could bevel the edges, and by beveling the edge, what I mean by that is cutting a 45-degree angle along the corner of one piece so that it fits together, kind of like if you've ever seen how wood furniture is constructed. Here, I'll try to cut a piece for you guys so you can see what I'm talking about here. So that when two corners are cut at a 45-degree angle, this can be kind of general with clay because we can fudge things with filling in gaps and stuff like that. It's not quite like wood. Wood has to be really precise. So I've got two pieces kind of cut an angle there. I don't know if you can see. You can see that. If I put it against a dark background, you can see it's cut at a 45-degree angle there. There you go, 45-degree angle. My other piece is also cut at a 45-degree angle, or generally 45-degree angle. If I put these two together, I score and slip them, they will make a nice sharp corner. And I would just make a little coil, fill in that gap, smooth it out, and I would have this nice 90-degree angle. And I wouldn't be adding any depth to the two slabs that I'm putting together. So I could do that here. I think just to show you guys this process without making it too complicated, I'll just slip and score and get you guys moving on your way so you guys know what you're... All right, so I am going to just score the surface just like we did for our previous project, making sure, since we're working leather clay into leather clay, these two slabs need to be scored and slipped. The only time you wouldn't have to do that is if you're working with plastic clay with plastic clay. So we are trying to make these two pieces of slab one piece in the end. So what we're doing is transferring the moisture between one and the other. Okay. I'm going to come on the bottom of this also because I know that this is going to be coming into contact with the base there. All right, so I've got both pieces that I am attaching. Both have been scored wherever they're going to come in contact with one another. At this point, I need to add some slip, which you guys already know. Again, repeating the same process that we did with the first projects. I'm just going to really slather it on there. This slip is pretty thick, but it should still be... I could add water to it. loosen it up a little bit, but this will still work. So if you find that your slip is starting to get kind of thick, all you need to do is add a little bit of water to it, stir it up. Next day it'll be a good consistency again. You'll get a good idea, a good sense of what kind of slip you like to work with. Okay. So I'm just going to add just a little bit, or a lot of it. All right, so I've got both surfaces scored. I've got both surfaces slipped. I'm going to place them together and compress it as much as I can gently so I'm not crushing anything or breaking any kind of weak spots. And it's okay if the edges don't match up perfectly. Again, we can go back later, kind of fudge those edges, scrape them down, or we can add clay to them if there's a gap. Really, we just want a good connection. We want it to bond. So now that I've pressed them together, the next step is to add one more layer of reinforcement on these seams. So anywhere like on the inside edges there, I would also probably add one on this outside edge here, along the bottom where I put that base. I am actually going to roll some coils. They don't have to be large. I'm just adding a little extra clay in there to reinforce those seams. So again, just like the project number 1 where we combined those pinch pots, same process. We're just reinforcing wherever we're making that connection with some fresh clay to help those 2 separate pieces of clay kind of bond. So I've made this pretty thin little coil. Doesn't need to be massive. And I'm going to just kind of place it where those 2 pieces connected. Actually, and I'm going to carry it over here as well, because this piece connected to the base as well. So I'm just going to bring that over. All right, so hopefully you guys can see that okay. The coil is just kind of pressed in there right now. Now I'm going to come in with my finger. You can also use a tool if you prefer. Just kind of blending that clay in, pushing it, compressing it into that seam. Now if you don't like this kind of rounded bottom here, if you want something more crisp, you can always come back in and clean that corner up, that edge, make it nice and sharp later. I would just let it sit and at least become leather hard before you start coming in here and aggressively kind of scraping that back so it's got a nice like sharp edge. So you could come back here and clean this up. But right now I'm just going to let that sit, settle itself, and become leather hard, and then I can come back in and clean it up. And same thing here, where this piece was connecting with that base. Just blending that clay in to reinforce that edge. And I can always come back in and clean up this bottom piece later too. I also know. All right, so I would do the same process for anywhere that I made that seam. So here, where those bonded, along this edge here. I could get in here too, probably have to use a tool to kind of clean up these edges. I could try to push a coil in there, but I do think that putting it along these edges on the outside will be enough to hold it. I would take that long tool though, like a molding tool, something with kind of a point or something, and clean up the extra slip and stuff that kind of squeezed out when I compressed it, just to make it a cleaner look on the inside, if that is a concern of yours. So yeah, that's how I would reinforce these seams. I'm not going to show you guys all that because that's going to take some time to do this whole thing. But this is kind of hard slab construction, the basics. So remember, score, slip, add an extra coil for reinforcement when you're adding leather hard pieces together.